Hey guys, Coldbrew here. Welcome back to another Raid Shadow Legends video. Today we've got some news about, well, you know it. It's the balance changes for this month. It's only 2 legendary champions that will be affected this time around, and both of them are from the Undead Horde faction. I don't think the Undead Horde faction needs so much attention as I would say the other factions, but still, these 2 champions will be getting a change. And you might have guessed it, out of the legendaries that we have right now, not so many of them need really a significant buff to make them actually shine and be useful for anyone out there from you guys that gets it. So you can probably guess the 2 that need some kind of attention. It's not going to be Morrigan, which was like a fusion very recently, so I don't think they would have done anything for her, but it's one that was a fusion. I think it was a fragment collection in the past. It's Elegaeus and Suzerain Catan that will be affected. So these 2 champions, especially Elegaeus, haven't seen so much action within the game as much as all the other ones. Even a little Miss Annie can see some action now with the new Fire Knight. She's a very strong single target nuker. But that being said, these 2 are the ones getting changed. Let's start with Suzerain Catan. Let's have a look at his kit. Right now, he's got an A1 that applies a decreased speed. It has an AoE on the A1, which I think it's amazing. If you're pushing faction wars, you need him with a stun set. And this one will basically help you really control the enemy waves and make it easier for you to just push through and reach the boss. So what is the change that is happening to Suzerain Catan? It's not on his A1, it's his A2 and A3 that are getting changed. His A2 Hex of Years is very interesting because what it does right now is it has a 75% chance to apply the weaken. And if that doesn't happen, then he applies a decreased defense, it made kind of sense, but not so much in terms of, okay, why do you have this? Why do you have this player? I mean, if it's resisted, or if you don't do the 75% chance, then you apply the decreased defense. I mean, it's all right, but usually what you're looking for in terms of defense down is the 1, okay? Not really weaken. People will prefer defense down over weaken in any situation for beating down a wave. And that is why Ghostborn is so good in the game. So what they're doing is they're boosting this skills damage. I'm not sure by how much because they never give us the multipliers and the change that is happening to the skill. But what they will also do is that they're boosting this chance to 100% chance, okay? Basically 70% chance here and then 30% chance from the books, making it 100% chance to apply the weaken. And then it seems that they're completely changing the second part of the skill. And now this will be a 45% chance to apply the decreased defense. Well, you might think that this is great, but actually it's not that great. It will get boosted to another 30%, so 75% chance to apply the defense down. But this does not help you get consistent runs. And this does not boost his own damage since he attacks and then applies the debuff. So for the other champions that follow him to actually do something. So he still remains as a support, and the damage boost to his A2 does not really affect him in the sense of you're going to use him as your sole wave clear champion in the sense of any other champion that you would have run, okay? You're still going to use him for applying the debuffs, and then if you happen to get some good stats on him to do some damage, then good for you, that's going to apply. So I'm not really sure about this change, but it's there, and I kind of prefer it, honestly, than what we currently have. It's going to be nice for anyone out there who has Suzerain Catan and is looking for the decreased defense and weaken, but it will not provide a consistency where you can depend on him as a 100% chance to apply both of those debuffs. Still very strong, added into the list of champions that apply both of those skills. Pretty cool if you ask me. And then his A3 Banish of Time, which is very, very interesting since it does remove shield, block damage, and unkillable buffs from all enemies and then attacks them. This is very interesting in the sense of it's getting a damage boost. So will we see him have any chance of being in arena teams? I don't think so, since this does not remove unremovable shields, which is the bolster set. So he will still have some issues with that. Any other area of the game where there's shields, block damage, and unkillable, then yes, he's still going to be useful there. And then the boost on his damage that he does will still be great. He has 3 area attacks. The stun set will still be great on him. I don't think he really gets anything bad out of these changes. And honestly, the A2 is more for anyone out there who doesn't have those two debuffs available. And this change makes it so that Suzerain can hold a place in your team. Okay, but remember, since this is an attack skill, he will still be affected by some things, such as the enemy having a strong affinity. So the magic affinities against Suzerain will still have the benefit of, you know, that 35% chance to do a weak hit. If he does a weak hit, not only he'll not crit, but he will also not apply any of the two debuffs. Okay, so that is for Suzerain Cantone. Elegeos gets more changes, actually. It almost completely changes the way that he worked. He had a very interesting kit, if you remember at all, on how his kit worked. He worked with how low his health was in terms of applying debuffs and reducing turn meter, but that is no longer the case. So it makes it interesting that they went this route with him. I did have some questions to Plarium about this one, so I'm gonna go with what I think is gonna happen, and then if something changes, then I'll probably add it as a comment to the video. But Elegeos, very strong in terms of single target lockout for the same champion. So that Valkyrie that you might find in Faction Wars, she can get locked out by Elegeos, and then she'll lock out all the other Valkyries. So the 3 Valkyrie wave, he can actually lock it out. So his A1 does not change, but this is what I mean by he boosts his chance to apply a block active skills for every 1% this champion loses. So that is what his whole kit was about, having extra chances based on the amount of health that he loses. This does not change, but then his dead stop skill, this one, it still puts the target skills on cooldown, but he also applies a block buffs debuff, which is very, very strong, especially if you're trying to lock out not only that champion, but also his ability to gain any buffs from other champions who are obviously not the same. So again, that Valkyrie wave, it also has, I think, a Warcaster who applies a block damage buff. So that is pretty cool. So he'll actually be very, very useful, even more so now for Faction Wars. And then if the enemy team has any duplicates of the target champion, we'll also put their skills on cooldown and apply the block buff. So he'll basically spread around the block buffs, which is pretty cool. And I just received a clarification for his A3. So that is perfect timing to explain what the change is going to be on Ghost Range. Okay, so Ghost Range currently attacks all enemies, 100% chance when booked on removing 2 random buffs, and then 100% chance to decrease turn meters by 20%. That is very, very solid in terms of what it does already in terms of buff removal and turn meter control. And then the extra turn meter control, this one looked very, very weird because he had to be lower in health to apply more decrease of turn meter, and this was on all enemies. But now what they do is they changed him a little bit to apply more of a decrease in turn meter based on the number of buffs that he removes. So what happens now is for the specific target that he removes a buff, so let's say a target has 2 buffs and he removes them, he'll additionally reduce the turn meter by another 10% for each buff. So if the target has no buffs, you'll only have a 20% reduction. If the target has 2 buffs, it will be 20% plus another 20% for the 2 buffs removed. So pretty strong. It does like what I would say. I'm gonna say like I think Sylar has a 40% reduce in turn meter, but he also does an attack and he also does a buff removal. So it's not only that, his kit is multi-purpose in that sense. And then on his passive, something also changes. Okay, this is pretty interesting. His passive changes so that the cooldown now becomes 4 turns when fully booked, and he'll gain 30% max health and 30% turn meter when he dies. And this happens, okay? So if this skill prevents the champion's death, will heal them by 30% and then fills their turn meter by 30%. Pretty cool. Matches, you know, the 30% shield that he also gets. So 30%. And by the way, he also gains an aura for accuracy boost by 60 in all battles. So that adds up on top of his usefulness, not only for Faction Wars, but other areas as well. Definitely like the changes on Elegeos. Not so crazy in the sense of him now being a meta breaking champion. None of the 2 changes are like that, but both of them are okay. I would have loved to see more of these, not just every month, because of the amount of champions we have. I don't know how they figured these changes go through. I think it's basically they see how often those champions are used within the game, and they think, okay, this champion might need some attention. We have lots of these, and it's not just the legendaries, the epics, the rares, and all that, but I doubt they'll ever have a look at the rares or even have a look at just epics. And the reason for that is they want people to summon, and they want them to be looking for legendaries, so they want to get the power of the legendaries to be obviously much higher than the epics, and they can't do it in a single patch. They could do more changes in a single patch, but obviously they keep it very low at 3 champions, 4 max. The minimum was like 2 so far. I wonder if they'll ever just do like a patch for 1 champion. But yeah, that's it for today, guys. This was the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. See ya.